game of the year. Seattle Seahawks came into this Thursday night primetime matchup against the Los Angeles Rams with the greatest stakes at play. Division winner, who's it going to be? Seems like these two teams were duking it out to determine that. Number one seed in the NFC. First round bye, how big that holds in sway into the playoffs. And it just felt like even more a momentous game as this thing wore along. More important as this thing got through. And this was as wild a game as you would watch. All of the things that you would get for a game to make it that kind of instant classic. The twists, the turns. Oh my God, the turmoil as many of us Hawk fans were struggling into that second half, struggling for the faith and the same kind of resolve that the team was able to show on the football field to go finally escape away with a 38-37 win and have for them now that opportunity, that golden chance that we thought looked so far away, but 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, but is now right there on the doorstep. This division, that number one seed in the NFC, which is the last 3 times you've taken, has taken you to the Super Bowl. This was a game where the Los Angeles Rams came out initially and really were giving it to you from a game plan standpoint, where McVay had really drawn up some modifications from the prior matchup that was giving this defense fits, and all across the board. First out, dedication to the run, one of the things they bailed on last time, they stuck with in this game, got downhill, got into those A and B gaps there with Kyner Williams, mixing in a little bit of Blake Corum. And it wasn't as much of that they were necessarily popping off big runs. Seattle was actually doing a reasonable job at stopping the run overall, but they were getting those plus runs every time. 3 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 yards in some varying form, always that on every carry, setting them up into some third down and short situations or getting down at times at fourth and go for it situations. As McVay, even on his side of the field, I don't know if it was Dan Campbell's influence from last week or what, but he was willing to go wild with the fourth down attempts in this football game. In addition to that, you were setting them up, defensively speaking, to be able to go and really have then third down conversions, fourth down conversions in this game. And then when they did go to the passing attack from the Rams standpoint in this game in that first half, there was a heavy amount of featuring Puka, who throughout this game was money for that Rams. But as well, it was a little bit of them first isolating Job early on in this game with some mismatches there and being able to target him there and doing just enough passing attack-wise with the running game, and then the defense getting stifling down the home stretch of those drives to kind of hold the Rams down to field goal attempts and keep you in the football game in the first half, despite the fact that the Rams dominated the time of possession and looked fully in control of the game because of the offense and what they were doing. They're chipping away at you in the running game, and then when Stafford's dropping back to throw, he's hitting some big plays into this defense, and he's hitting some plays where it isn't with your guys tight in coverage, but some very loose-fitting zones. Once again, a game where you have Puka Nacua being the real dangerous element to this offense, and yet there's a lot of times in this game where you could see Seattle was more preoccupied with their defenders dropping to a spot in space, not picking up necessarily a Rams receiver, and then that leaving that Ram receiver wide open, as in the case of Nacua. He had probably a contested catch here or there in this game, but there's going to be a lot of catches on tape with him just running wide open through the zones in this defense, which was tough to see, hard to understand, as it hasn't been there in the Seattle Seahawks defense throughout the course of this season. Something that you hope they can clean up, but it was wild to watch as whenever Stafford seemingly wanted to target down the field, he was able to hit some shots. And he made some great throws. An outstanding game for Stafford, who probably cements his MVP status with a game like this. 29 of 49, 457 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, played an incredibly clean game. Seahawks gave him a clean pocket that first half to deal with. They brought some pressure into that second half, but he persevered throughout in this game and how he played. There were a lot of times in this game where I felt like the Rams receivers, tight ends, kind of let him down at times. Those not named Puka Nacua with some drops, and he put it right in their hands, and it might have been a tough catch, but he made an insane throw, a dime, and you kind of let it get ripped out there as Joe was able to do Von Mumford at one point in this game. And it could have been even a better day. It could have been over 500 yards. It speaks to this incredible nature of this game from a Seahawks fan perspective, and that you give up almost 600 yards in this game in totality. You lose the turnover war 0-3. And yet you still come away and find the win in this one. But that's this kind of game. It didn't have to make a lot of sense when it's all said and done. You just went and got the victory. And that defense was a struggle in that first half, but likewise found a way to limit down the points. Seahawks then on the offensive side of the ball there that first half weren't able to do a lot, but weren't able to do a lot by and large because the defense couldn't get off the football field and allowed the Rams to control the clock. Rams started off with the kickoff, just controlling drive after controlling drive, Seahawks come out with a beautiful first drive. You give Sam a couple of quick, easy throws in space to players. Walker gets up the field is tremendous. You're getting a touchdown in the opening drive. You're good in the red zone on that opening drive. It's looking like a day where you're really going to be able to step for step match that Rams offense if it has to go in that particular direction. But then the offense goes cold on the next couple of drives. Some odd play calling, some bad execution, some pre-snap penalties as we've seen a couple times over. And then you get to the final drive of the half where there's only about inside of 2 minutes because the defense has been on the field for so long in that first half. You're moving up the football field. Sam's actually getting some completions. He's actually getting some chunks up the field. Makes a nice completion to Cooper Kupp, who's running up the field as he's had done very well so this year on the yak stuff. And then he gets the ball knocked out of his hands for a fumble, and that destroyed your chances there at the end of half, taking you into halftime behind that Ram team and looking like you were much further behind them than the score really revealed. You came back off of halftime and you were able to go get a touchdown instantaneously on the first drive of that half with Kenneth Walker busting off his best run of the year, giving us finally one of those home runs we've been looking for. Not just a big chunk run, but actually busting it for a touchdown. Boy, was that needed as Walker came up huge in this game, both with what he was able to do as a runner of the rock and what he was doing out of the backfield in his pass catching. Things seem to be turning in the favor of the Seattle Seahawks. Momentum seemed to be shifting into their direction. Defense seemed to finally start to find some solutions to this Rams rushing attack, taking those 5 and 6 yard gains and pulling them back down to 1 yard gains. Starting to get a little bit of the temperature turned up on Stafford on a pass rushing front as it was completely quiet and cold throughout all of the first half. And then Sam Darnold made one of his awful throws, one of those awful interceptions that's just inexcusable. And as with Sam, the bad result becomes the worst result. It's a pick six going back in the other direction. And then you get a couple drives later, Sam's got the team driving down the football field, and yet on a drop back, doesn't see the zone drop there from Kobe Turner. He's standing there right in space, able to pick the ball off back from Sam right there. And the Sam haters were so proud of themselves at that moment, saying, see, we told you the bright lights are too bright. It's too big for him. He always wilts, especially wilts against this Rams team. And then funny thing happened on the way to that tired old narrative. Sam Darnold went out there and found a way to turn around from those 2 interceptions, went back, made a nice touchdown pass on a play action throw all the way back across the field to Barner, and then was able to have them drive at the end of this game to go and get the score. Is this going to now quiet those folks that are anti-Darnold? No. But should it a bit? Yeah, it should. On a game this week that comes on the heels of the game last week where he had to basically do 2 game-winning drives at the end after they got the field goal and then the defense allowed the other offense to get a field goal. Then he had to go get another field goal there. Here you have him at the end of this game where the defense allows a touchdown after overtime. Seattle Seahawks are out of chances at that point. They get the ball back. They get the opportunity. Got to drive down the field. No more room. And Sam does so. He makes big-time throws throughout the course of that final drive. Yeah, you get a little bit of running room here and a little bit of running room there, but you're not popping it off in that final drive. It's because you throw the rock to get the job done. It's the toe tag, drag swag of Cooper Kupp, but the good throw that comes with it. It's JSN running a real pristine route at the end when you need it in the back of the end zone to break free, and Sam recognizing it, but Sam also putting a brilliant pass there on that throw. And it is Sam at the end. As you get down to it and you're going to go for the 2-point conversion, and he's able to hit Saubert on a wonderfully run route by Saubert, especially from just a timing standpoint. Not that it's some crispy, sharp drive, but he's laying a chip block. It's all a timed up thing. You're trying to get the defense to kind of forget about you. They do just that. A guy you haven't targeted all day, he cuts inside. Sam's looking to him. Consider there from Sam's perspective what you're thinking there, where game's on the line. We got one play. Do or die. I want to go to my money man. I want to go to the guy that got me here. I'm going to go to the guy in JSN that's had 100 yards receiving in just this half alone. Or maybe I'll go to Barner, who's been such a good red zone option for me. But Sam made a great choice there to go to the guy that he tactically, I think, thought a little bit. Certainly probably saw him break open, but at least was open-minded to the fact that this guy also is going to be probably forgotten about by this Rams defense. And they are probably going to stifle and draw their coverage over to JSN. And indeed, as you saw, Barner, like 2 ships passing in the night there with Saubert on the other side of it. Barner was carrying 2 defenders with him as Saubert was undercutting the route. Saubert's defender essentially was a little late to him because he was more locked in on Barner. Great job there at the end in execution by Darnold. Fantastic decision by the coaching staff. I know in retrospect this looks like a no-brainer a little bit, but still very smart on their approach. Because if you just go for the extra point, you tie the game up, you give the Rams an opportunity there with 3:14 left, you potentially now give them that chance in Stafford, who's kind of cutting you up on the day and looking likely that he's going to do so once again if you give him the ball back. That doesn't sound good. Maybe you have the just time run out, but you're able to stop him at that point. Well, then at that point, it's a tie game, and then the tiebreaker between the Rams and the Seahawks comes back to the Rams if it comes down to the end and you're able to win out. And that doesn't help the Seahawks either on that side of it. So they win for broke. They win for game. They didn't sit there and go, well, let's hope we can just eke this out. They said, let's go and take this thing. That was the spirit they were giving you a little bit in addition to all of that. It was wonderful to see. You got to give a shout out to the man who's been such a marvelous addition to this team since coming over in a trade deadline deal, and a man who should cement John Schneider's status as executive of the year this year in the NFL. That's Rashid Shaheed. You gave a 4th and a 5th round pick for a rental. That's risky. And you wonder if, it's not a lot to give up. It's only a half season of play. You're going to get there. And just the mighty returns he's provided alone as that kick returner, as this punt returner, has almost made it well worth it. He had the kickoff return for a touchdown in the Falcons game where it was tied 6-6 coming out of halftime, and he sparked that team. You felt the momentum drive of that kick return touchdown to kick off that half, and what it did to the rest of the game is the Seahawks hung a 30-point spot then up on the board in that half, and likewise in this game, it was looking dark. Many a 12th man out there were putting their noose together, getting ready, hopping in their car in their garage, sticking the thing in the exhaust. It was getting dark, I'm telling you. And Shaheed came out there on a punt return with a sense of urgency and brought another one back. Brought this game back into a spot where you look up at the scoreboard and you go, this has been a horrific game in so many accounts. This game feels like 42-7. And oh, wait, 2-point conversion and another touchdown, 2-point. We're actually almost within one score of it on this game. How is this possible? But it was Rashid busting it off there, and also props to so many different blockers on that play. Patrick O'Connell is the point man out in front. You get another great double team over to this one side with Barner. I couldn't see who else it was there. And then 2 other guys, if you notice on that play down the home stretch of that run, that is very cool in what they did, because they got a block without getting a block in the back. You got just a little bit of a titch of a touch on the guy to hold them up just enough, to hold that block off just enough to allow him freed up to go down the field there. I think I saw Derek Young as one of those guys. I think Sundell was another one of the guys down the field where they just lay out their body. If you watch them on the replay, they're literally Superman laying out their body just to get that one little glancing blow there as a block, in order to give Shaheed just enough space to get free, to get in the end zone, go get that touchdown. Props to him as well as staying in bounds on that. That's not easy to do as you're running full speed as fast as you can, trying to kind of cut on that dime up the field. But that was a hell of a moment to give Seattle a shot in the arm in the way they needed. And as you can see every week, as I've said many times in these breakdowns, when you have the best special teams unit in the entire sport, it shows up on every given Sunday. And you're going to get to feel that, especially going up against another unit, the Rams, who aren't necessarily particularly very good in special teams, or we'll call them middle of the road to be generous, if you were. A couple of places I want to talk about in this game as far as a few of the early things you're hearing out there in the landscape of things. And first off, the 2-point conversion is going to be one that many people are talking about. And now this is a place where Seahawks are trying to go for 2. Sam Darnold drops back on a bubble screen, throws it quick. Jared Verse makes a great play, penetrates into the backfield. It's a backwards pass that goes off of the helmet of Verse, yet it goes forward. There's a whistle then blown by the officials. Charbonnet walks over, though, and picks up the ball. And so what happens there is, because it's a 2-point attempt, all of those replays are automatically replayed, this one including, and that supersedes the whistle. And this has many Ram fans upset and angry. And all I can say to that is, turnabout is fair play. Last year, the Seattle Seahawks had their season ended by the Los Angeles Rams and Arizona Cardinals, and it was coming down the end line in that game. It was a very close game, a very tight game. Cardinals were driving for potentially the ending score. And there's a throw that goes off the helmet of Trey McBride. And the Rams player catches an interception seemingly, but he pins the ball literally into the ground. In a game here, by the way, in Seattle, where we saw a similar kind of play overturned as not an interception. Witherspoon pins the ball into the ground. Cardinals' hopes are dashed. Seahawks season is over. And you go to Rams fans and you say, hey, he used the ground to catch the ball. And they say, well, but the ball didn't move. Letter of the law. That's what they'll say. Ball didn't move, letter of the law. They'll keep a squawking. So I guess to them, I've got to say the letter of the law. Letter of the law on that 2-point attempt and how it's constructed in the replay rules, put it in fair play. So by the letter of the law, it's a clean play. You can't really squawk about it. You can't squawk about it if you're going to say to the other side of it, no, we got to play the line. Got to play the line. It's also kind of hilarious for Rams fans to be talking about officiating. I'll also say that. Coming on the heels of last week in that touchdown catch to Parkinson. Anyway, This was a game with a lot of different big play moments, and Sam Darnold, again, I think played a well enough game. Those interceptions, awful interceptions, when it goes bad for him, red zone interception, pick six, you hate to see it. But he brought back that resiliency that's been in play. And I maintain that if this team, through the better parts of it, can come together, this is a team that can go win a Super Bowl. Certainly, if they're going to get the first seed in the NFC, in a wide open NFC, in a wide open NFL. This is not a year of these big juggernauts that are all over the place. You might have played one of the only remaining juggernauts that does exist out there. And though I think Sam's going to have a hyper amount of attention focused his direction in this game, and a lot of that's going to, I think, be forgotten about in the good things that he did. It's the defense as much as anything in this game that you got to look back on, to me, and shake your head at. And that should be where the forefront of the discussion is. For though you didn't give up the big chunks of yardage on the ground, the Rams were consistently, for the most part, throughout a lot of this game, able to go find those good carries, those good runs. They kept being able to set themselves in the stage of the third down and shorts, the third down and makeables, and the defense paid the price on the back of that. And then you kind of wonder if part of the looseness of those zones was them trying to kind of tighten down a little bit of the running game and having a little bit of their attention more molded over onto that as an adjustment to that. And then they were able to get him in the passing attack. And Puka Nacua running wide open and free. I do hope, if maybe there's just one learning lesson on this, and we eventually do have to face this Rams team again down the line, that this team is going to drop a little bit more of a determination of putting more attention over onto Puka, especially when it comes to these loose fitting zones where they're just dropping back to nowhere. It was very frustrating to watch in this game as it happened over and over and over again. As far as defenders in this game, Leonard Williams played a great game. Devin Witherspoon was really solid, I thought, overall as well. He gave up one big catch to Puka Nacua, but would have actually liked to see more of Witherspoon out there one-on-one in coverage with him and having that opportunity to do what he could do out there. Defensively, the rest of the guys were kind of all over the board there. You know, a guy like Drake Thomas, who's been really good for you, got picked on at times in coverage. And so it's hard to give a lot of lotting out there. You weren't able to generate much pressure in this game as well, even at times where Stafford was able to drop back deep into the pocket. So hard to give too many guys out there a lot of tip of the caps. When it comes to the offensive side of the ball, I think you did a relatively decent job of pass protecting against this very good Rams defensive front, especially considering how much you were going to have to pass in this game. Kubiak certainly, I felt like at times was weird with the running game. You have the 55-yard carry there by Kenneth Walker, and then you kind of forget to go back to him, and then you go right back to the Charbonnet running role of him flipping in and out in that way, and Charbonnet wasn't finding as much headway in this game, and you kept going back to that. It was kind of odd and strange and not working Walker a little bit more in a game like this that you really did need him. JSN had a quiet first half, no catches, only one target, but then came back in a big way. Cooper Kupp was being accused of being a double agent after that fumble in the first half, but then he came back and said, no, I'm from this state. I was born here. I am a Washingtonian. Comes back and makes that toe tag, drag, swag catch of the game with the game on the line. That's a hell of a catch for him. And I think as he showed in this game, despite that fumble, there's still something a little bit left in the tank, and he helped you go get that win today. Rashid Shaheed was held without a catch on this day, but he did have a 31-yard run on a nice little end around, a fake to Charbonnet to the one side, then come back on the end around in the other direction, and that was good to see. Rest of the line held up relatively well. Pre-snap penalties were still a little bit of the thing, and maybe a tad bit more pressure than you would have liked to see, especially considering all of the chipping and all of the helping that some of them were getting out there. Some of it comes back with the offense and some of this up and down nature to me, at least in my eyes at times, bit of the play calling there with Kubiak. Can't blame him for the pick six. That's going to be on Darnold. Can't blame him for the interception down there to Kobe Turner. And there's so many good things that he did. Even the structure of the Barner play action, rolling to one side of the field with it always set up to throw it way back to that far side of the field. And Barner running wide open and free. That's a great game caller. But there is still a little bit of that maddening element to Kubiak at times where you go, man, can we just keep sticking with what's working and not try to be all over the place? Does this determine that the Seattle Seahawks are a front runner? No. Does this give us as good a chance as anybody? Hell to the yes. Am I going to expect to hear a lot of excuses from Rams fans throughout the course of the next couple of days about why they lost this game? Yeah, I'm sure I am. I'm expecting it, but I don't care. At the end of the day, stack the wins up, get the first round bye, and that's all that matters. They can keep all their excuses. They can keep all of their cope. Would love to hear from them. Hey, we just flat lost this game, but I'm already hearing a lot of those excuses. Not the same excuses we were applying when we lost to them, but by just barely. But we'll see how this goes. Maybe down the line, once again, as I do suspect, we probably will be playing this Rams team again, and then we'll let that fully determine at that time down the road in Seattle after our first round rested bye as to who is really the king of the NFC West. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all else, don't you ever forget Go Hawks.